When I opened my eyes, everything felt wrong. The ceiling was too white, the air too clean, and the weight on my body too heavy. It took me a few seconds to register that I couldn't move. Not my legs, not my hips, not even enough to shift in bed. My throat was dry, like I'd swallowed gravel, and something beeped steadily nearby. A nurse walked in as if on cue. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and that quiet efficiency that only comes from years of watching people at their worst. "Good, you're awake," she said gently. "You've been through quite a bit." I blinked slowly, trying to speak, but my mouth didn't want to cooperate yet. She poured a cup of water and held the straw to my lips. "You're in Legacy Emmanuel Medical Center," she said as I drank. "You were in a bike accident 3 nights ago. Got hit by a van. You're lucky to be alive." 3 nights ago. I tried to move, panic shooting through me, but the pain was immediate and searing. I let out a noise, half gasp, half whimper. "Easy, easy," she said, adjusting something on the IV. "You have a fractured pelvis, both legs in traction, and a punctured lung. You're not going anywhere." I felt the tears coming before I could stop them. It wasn't the pain, though that was bad enough. It was the helplessness. I had left my firm's studio at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night after a late project review. I had done everything right: lights, helmet, reflective gear. And still, I ended up here. The nurse placed a cool hand on my shoulder. "We contacted your emergency contacts. Your mother answered. They left a voicemail the next day." She handed me a tablet. "Said it was easier." I pressed play, my fingers shaking. My mom's voice filled the room, chipper and bright like she was narrating a vacation slideshow. "Hey honey, we're actually heading out to that photography retreat in Iceland. Your brother really wanted to go, so we just decided, why not? Don't call, roaming is expensive. Oh, and thanks for the card. We used it to pay for the trip. Get well soon, that was it. No, how are you? No, we're worried sick." Just a cheerful screw you wrapped in a breezy travel announcement. I stared at the screen, my mind blank. They didn't wait for me to wake up. They didn't even ask if I'd survive. They used my credit card. I felt something shift inside me then. A slow, quiet snap. I'd been hit by a van at 30 miles per hour, and yet somehow that voicemail hurt worse. The nurse, I'd later learn her name was Diana, sat beside me for a minute longer, maybe sensing I wasn't ready to be alone with that recording. "Is there anyone else we can call for you?" she asked gently. I thought about it, and then I shook my head. There wasn't. Not anymore. The second day in the hospital was worse than the first. The adrenaline had worn off. The painkillers were steady, but dulled everything in a way that made the hours bleed together. I couldn't sit up, couldn't move my legs, couldn't even go to the bathroom without pressing a button and waiting for someone to help me. The indignity was constant. But it wasn't what broke me. What broke me was the silence. No calls, no flowers, no text from Mom or Kyle, or even a dumb forwarded joke from Dad. It was like I had ceased to exist the moment I stopped being useful. Doctor Lawrence, my trauma doctor, stopped by in the afternoon. A serious man with a soft voice and tired eyes. He stood at the end of my bed and reviewed the chart like it was a script he'd read too many times. "You're stable," he said. "That's the good news. We're monitoring for blood clots and infection, but your vitals look good." "Great," I rasped, my voice barely there. He hesitated. "The pelvic fracture is going to make recovery difficult. You'll need assistance for quite a while." "Okay," I said, because what else could I say? He looked at me for a second longer, then lowered the clipboard slightly. "Do you have support at home?" I gave a bitter laugh. "You mean besides the ones currently bathing in Icelandic hot springs on my dime?" He didn't smile. He just nodded, like he'd heard that kind of answer before. "Let the nurses know if you need anything, and if you have anyone we can loop in, now's the time." After he left, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. My mind wandered, unspooling memory after memory I'd buried so deep I almost forgot they were real. Like my 16th birthday. Kyle had begged my parents to drive 3 hours to watch him compete in some high school photography contest, his newest hobby of the month. My mom told me, without apology, "We'll do cake another day, sweetheart. This is important for your brother's future." The cake never came, but Kyle won Best in Composition, and that apparently made it all worth it. Or when my dad lost his job during my second year of college and asked if I could put part of my student loan toward the mortgage. I said yes, even though it meant skipping textbooks for a semester. Kyle, on the other hand, got a brand new mirrorless camera 2 months later. It's for his brand, my mom explained. His brand never turned into anything, just a YouTube channel with shaky drone footage and 200 subscribers. Most of them bots. Still, I paid. I always did. I paid for Kyle's video editing software, for his gear, for that one international trip he insisted would launch his travel career. He went to Lisbon, came home 2 weeks later, and uploaded exactly one video, a blurry pan of a food truck. When our parents' credit tanked, I co-signed the loan to refinance the house. When their water heater broke, I sent money without being asked. And when Kyle's Jeep broke down, the one they put in my name because his credit was garbage, I took off work and paid the repair bill. I was the fixer, the reliable one, the one who kept my head down and did the right thing. And the more I gave, the more they forgot I had needs of my own. I stared at the IV taped to my arm, watching the slow drip of fluid into my vein. It hit me then, really hit me. They hadn't changed. This wasn't some isolated screw-up. This was just another entry in a very long list. They never saw me. Not when I graduated top of my class in architecture. Not when I bought my first car cash. No help from anyone. Not even when I landed my job at the firm, a position people wait years to get. To them, I was a resource. Not a daughter, not a sister. Just a dependable wallet with a polite smile and good credit. I turned my face to the side and let the tears fall. No one would see them anyway. No one was coming. That conversation happened about a month before the accident. I remember because it took me 2 weeks just to work up the nerve to say it. To actually say the words, I can't keep helping like this. It was a Sunday afternoon. I had just come back from a showing for a little condo in Northeast Portland. It wasn't big, just under 800 square feet. But it had good light, a private balcony, and just enough room to make me feel like I wasn't living out of my work bag anymore. I wanted it. God, I wanted it so bad. A place that was mine. Quiet. Uncluttered. Unclaimed. That night, I called my parents on speaker, pacing the floor of my apartment. I'm thinking about making an offer on a place, I said, trying to sound breezy. I'd need to cut back on a few things, but I think I can make it work. There was silence on the line. Then my mom said, You mean cut back? Like stop helping us? My stomach sank. I should have known that's where her mind would go. I mean cut back in general, I said carefully. I've been putting away as much as I can, but with the stuff I've been covering, your heating bills, the car insurance, Kyle's subscriptions, it's getting tight. Oh, my mom said flatly. Then came the theatrics. You know, I just don't understand. We supported you when we could. We're your family, Janelle, my dad chimed in, his voice low and irritated. You're making decent money. I don't know what the issue is. Kyle's still finding his feet, and we're doing the best we can. Maybe be a little grateful for once. Grateful. That was rich. Kyle texted during the call. I'll never forget it. Just one message. No words. Just a damn eye roll emoji. I ended the call quickly after that. Said I had an early meeting. They didn't argue. And as I sat there in my dark apartment, staring at the blurry photo I took of the condo's balcony, I actually felt proud of myself. I thought, I did it. I set a boundary. Finally. It felt shaky, sure, like I was holding up a stop sign made of cardboard in the middle of a freeway. But still, it was something. Only it wasn't. Because that week, while I was recovering from the flu and buried under 2 major deadlines, I got an email from my credit card company, a charge from Iceland Air, 1 from a gear rental service in Reykjavik, 2 from hotels with names I couldn't pronounce, and a huge one, almost $4,000, for something called Northern Light Photo Escape. My chest went cold. I scrolled frantically through the transactions, realizing one by one what I was looking at. They had booked the trip before the accident, before the crash, before the hospital, before they even knew I was hurt. They had already charged the card. They were just waiting for the right excuse to leave, for something big enough to justify disappearing. And I handed it to them on a silver platter. A hit and run at the intersection of Fremont and Martin Luther King. I imagined the scene, me lying unconscious in an ambulance, tubes down my throat, blood filling my lung, while they were busy packing scarves and camera drones. All that time I thought I'd drawn a line. Turns out it was just a suggestion, a polite whisper, and they had walked right over it, smiling, as if it never mattered at all. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I finally opened my banking app. I had been putting it off for days, telling myself I needed rest, that healing was more important than numbers on a screen. But the truth was, I was afraid. I already knew what I'd find. I just wasn't ready to see it. The app loaded slowly, or maybe my hands were just trembling. Then the numbers appeared, and I stopped breathing. $14,000. Gone. I scrolled through the charges, each one hitting like a slap. Luxury hotels in Reykjavik, spa packages labeled thermal detox, camera equipment rentals, outdoor gear, gourmet tasting menus, Iceland Air business class. And then I found it. A charge from a boutique drone retailer, $1,495, Glacier Cam X5 bundle. The memo on the receipt read, Kyle's must-have. I pressed my palm to my forehead and let the phone fall against the blanket. This wasn't a vacation. It was a raid, a coordinated heist where the thieves didn't even wear masks. They just used my name. I switched to the group chat we still shared, the one titled Fam Jam, like we were some wholesome sitcom clan. There were only a few messages since the accident. Most of them were from Kyle. Bruh, Iceland is sick. I'm in my visionary era lol. Thanks to the Janelle Foundation for sponsoring our soul-searching journey. That last one broke me. It wasn't just a joke. It was the truth. Their truth, anyway. My money wasn't seen as help. It wasn't even seen as generosity. It was expected. Automatic, like air, like water. I had never donated it. I had owed it. And now, broken in a hospital bed, unable to stand or breathe without wires and machines, I was still their bank account with a pulse. I covered my face and started to cry. The kind of crying that doesn't make noise. That doesn't even feel like release, just quiet pressure leaking out through your eyes when you've run out of strength to keep it in. A few minutes later, I felt someone sit beside the bed. Diana, my nurse, the one with kind eyes and coffee breath and a braid that always came loose by 2 p.m. She didn't say anything right away, just sat there, folding her hands in her lap. When she finally spoke, it was soft. Want to talk about it? I shook my head. She nodded like she understood, then reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. A card. On it were 6 words, handwritten in careful block letters. You don't owe anyone your breath just because they shared your blood. She tucked it into the edge of the pillow where I could see it. Then she reached into her other pocket and set down a book. Old and cracked, spine held together with a rubber band. Sci-fi, she said. Totally cheesy, but the main girl's got a spine of steel. Reminded me of you. I didn't know what to say, so I just blinked at her, eyes still wet. Diana stood up, adjusted my blanket like she was tucking in her own kid, and then walked out of the room without waiting for thanks. It was the first time in days I didn't feel alone. Not because someone fixed it, not because someone offered to fix it, just because someone stayed. The hospital became my world. Days passed in slices. Morning meds, physical therapy, sponge baths, and the slow counting of ceiling tiles. The worst of the pain faded into a constant ache. I was allowed to sit up a few degrees by the end of week 2. That was a victory. And somewhere in the middle of all that, the noise of machines, the silence from my family, the steady drip of IVs, a new kind of rhythm formed. A quieter one. It started with Miss Anita. She'd been wheeled in on a Friday afternoon. A tiny woman with short silver curls, sharp brown eyes, and the energy of someone who had once run a classroom full of 8th graders without breaking a sweat. I learned later she had been a middle school principal for nearly 30 years. She looked over at me from her bed as they rolled her in and said, "Well, you look like hell." I laughed. Actually laughed. And it hurt like hell, but it felt good too. From then on, she made it her mission to coach me through every tiny movement. "You're not made of glass, Janelle," she said, when I flinched trying to reach the water cup. "You got bones and blood and breath. That means you're alive. Start acting like it." She called me Miss Architect and would time me during rehab sessions with her wristwatch like it was a competitive sport. "Every inch you move is yours alone," she'd say, "so don't give it away." Then there was Walt. He was the janitor, probably in his 60s, with a weathered face and a habit of whistling old jazz standards as he pushed his mop down the hallway. I didn't even notice him at first, just another blur in the background, until one morning I found a single butterscotch candy sitting on my food tray. No note, just candy. The next morning, another one. By the third day, I caught him in the act. "You trying to bribe me?" I asked. He grinned. Royal treatment for royalty. Every morning after that, I'd find a sweet on my tray. Peppermint, Tootsie Roll, Werther's, sometimes two. "Don't tell Anita," he winked. "She's got opinions about sugar." Dr. Fayez, my attending physician, was a mystery at first. She had the kind of calm that made people pay attention, hair in a tight scarf, lab coat crisp, always walked like she had 5 places to be. But every night after rounds, she'd drop by. Not to talk medicine, to talk design. "You're an architect," she said one night. Flipping through one of my old sketches I'd asked someone to bring from my apartment. "What do you think of the layout here?" She meant the hospital wing. We ended up in a quiet conversation about spacing, light angles, the way natural light could affect healing. That became our thing. A brief escape into form and function and something that belonged to me, not my family, not their expectations, just me. Bit by bit, I felt myself returning. Not the version they knew, not the Janelle who always picked up the phone and said yes, no matter the cost. This version was bruised, scarred, bolted together with titanium and stubbornness. But I was mine. The staff became my circle. The nurse who brought warm blankets without asking. The physical therapist who high-fived me after I moved my left leg half an inch. The med tech who smuggled in a proper latte one morning and whispered, "The coffee here's a crime." They didn't want anything from me, didn't demand explanations or credit card swipes or fake forgiveness. They saw me as a patient, but more than that, they saw me as a person. And maybe for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The day Diana handed me Maxine's business card, it was folded in half and paper clipped to the inside of a paperback mystery novel. "She's a little intense," Diana warned, "but she's good. No fluff, no pity, just results." I nodded, staring at the name. Maxine Galloway, CPA, fraud and asset recovery consultant. A week later, Maxine rolled into my hospital room with a leather folder, a tablet, and the energy of someone who didn't blink even when faced with fire. She didn't waste time. "Your credit score is solid. Your accounts are compromised. Your family's sloppy. That works in our favor." Her voice was brisk, matter of fact, like she'd already seen the ending and was just waiting for me to catch up. We started with the basics. "First things first," she said, typing rapidly. "We're locking every bank account they've touched. That includes joint cards, authorized user accounts, and any shared payment platforms. You're going to get some angry texts. Don't reply." I nodded. "Next," she continued, "we're filing fraud reports for every unauthorized charge, especially the Iceland trip. You have enough documentation here to make Amex weep?" She paused. "And I've already called them. We'll have the refund in 2 weeks, routed to a secure account I've set up under a trust in your name." I blinked. "Wait, a trust?" She looked up. "You want insulation? We build walls." From there, it was a blur. Calls to banks, legal forms, password resets, utility cancellations. "Did you know the electric bill for your parents' house is under your name?" Maxine asked. Scrolling through a spreadsheet. I didn't. "Gas, water, cable too," she added. "We're shutting them all down. If they want to watch Netflix, they can pay for it themselves." And then the big one, Kyle's Jeep. Registered in my name, payments auto-drafted from my checking account every month for nearly 3 years. "Repossession is already scheduled," Maxine said, smiling faintly. "I called it in this morning." She tapped her tablet screen and turned it toward me. "You're owed about $17,000 in recoverable losses. We'll file a formal complaint, and I'll get you a forensic accountant to back it up." I stared at her, a mix of awe and disbelief. "You do this for a living," she smirked. "Most people don't need this level of cleanup. But I specialize in financial codependency fallout, mostly divorce, occasionally families like yours." Her eyes softened slightly. "This isn't your fault, you know." I didn't respond. I wasn't sure I believed that yet. She closed her folder, stood, and handed me a slim envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Your new debit card. No one else has access. No one else ever will. I stared at the envelope. Something about it felt heavier than it should have. Not in weight, but in meaning. "This is it," I said quietly. "I'm cutting them off." Maxine looked me in the eye. "No," she said. "You're taking back what's yours." Later that night, I lay in bed with my leg propped on 2 pillows, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed. 5 missed calls. 2 from Mom, 1 from Kyle, 2 from an unknown Icelandic number. No voicemails, just the digital equivalent of knocking on a locked door. I didn't answer. I just muttered out loud, to no one in particular, "I'm not leaving them stranded." Diana, who'd stepped in quietly with my evening meds, glanced up. "You're not?" I shook my head. "They were never on solid ground to begin with." I paused. "I'm just not paying their way anymore. 2 weeks into my recovery, doctor." Fayez approved a single afternoon pass. Strictly supervised, strictly timed. Diana signed herself up as my escort before I could even ask. "I've got a neighbor with a truck," she said. "You point, we pack, we leave." We pulled into my parents' driveway around noon. The house looked exactly the same as it always did. Neat siding, potted geraniums, wind chimes clinking near the porch. It was eerie how ordinary everything looked. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't nearly died. Like 14 grand hadn't just evaporated from my accounts. But I knew better. The Jeep was gone. Maxine had handled that 3 days earlier. Repossessed in broad daylight. According to a text Diana had gleefully read aloud from her couch. "Guess the Bank of Janelle is officially closed," she had said, with a grin. We stepped inside, using the old security code. Still my birthday. Apparently, they hadn't changed it. The house was quiet. Diamond soys. They were still in Iceland from what Maxine had gathered, which meant I had the place to myself. "I'll be quick," I told Diana. She nodded. "Take your time." I moved slow, careful not to twist or stretch too far. I wasn't here for furniture or TV remotes. I was here for what mattered. In the hall closet, I found my old sketchbooks, dozens of them, tucked behind bins of holiday decorations. The paper edges were yellowed, corners curled, filled with graphite smudges and shaky floor plans from high school that somehow still made my chest ache. I found my social security card and passport locked in a filing cabinet in the home office. I took those too. In the top drawer of my mom's vanity, behind an old curling iron and a cracked makeup palette, I found the necklace my grandmother gave me when I was 12. A small gold pendant with a rose etched in the center. I slipped it around my neck. The last thing I took was in the attic. It was stupid, really. A plush giraffe with one torn ear and a faded yellow belly. I'd slept with it until I was 8. I thought it was lost, but there it was, buried in a box labeled Janelle's stuff, wedged between a broken picture frame and a dried-out bottle of glitter glue. I took it. When I came back down, Diana was waiting in the kitchen, leaning against the counter. "Got what you need?" she asked. I nodded. "All of it." I grabbed a sticky note and scribbled something, then stuck it on the fridge door before we left. In plain black ink, in all caps, "I am no longer your provider. Find another way." That night, after we got back to the hospital, the flood began. First a missed call, then a voicemail, then a barrage of texts. "Mom, what did you do, Dad? You went through our house without asking?" Kyle, "Seriously? You couldn't wait like 2 days?" Mom again, "You are making this so much harder than it needs to be." Kyle, "Enjoy the giraffe. Must have cost a lot to ship your guilt home too." Dad, "Unbelievable. After all we've done for you." I didn't reply. I muted the thread. Diana passed me the old book she'd given me during that first long night, the one about the girl with the steel spine, and just said, "Good call." I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry either. I just felt light, like I had finally stopped dragging something behind me I didn't even know I was carrying. They showed up 4 days later. It was a Thursday, warm outside, the kind of Portland spring day that makes the air smell like rain-soaked pavement and cherry blossoms. I was halfway through a breathing exercise with the respiratory therapist when Diana poked her head in. "Company," she said, her face unreadable. I didn't ask who. I already knew. My mother came in first, hair windblown, sunglasses perched on top of her head like a crown. She wore her traveling cardigan, the one she always saved for plane rides and passive-aggressive family dinners. My father followed, red-faced and silent, with the stiffness of a man trying to hold back something volcanic. Kyle trailed in last, sunburned and scowling, hoodie pulled over his head like a teenager, even though he was 30. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then my mom forced a smile, all brittle and too wide. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. "We just got back. We heard, well, we saw what you did." I didn't return the smile. I just reached for the folder on the bedside tray. It was thick, printed copies of everything Maxine had prepared. Legal notices, fraud filings, revoked authorizations. A typed letter addressed to each of them. Boundaries listed in plain language. Terms of future contact. Conditions, consequences. No more financial requests. No more emotional blackmail disguised as checking in. No more using my name, my credit, my kindness. I handed the folder to my mother. She opened it, skimmed the first few lines, and froze. "What the hell is this?" my father barked, his voice already raised. "Expectations," I said quietly, "for going forward." "You can't be serious," Kyle muttered, snatching a copy from her and flipping through the pages. "You want us to sign contracts?" My mother's hand trembled. "This is insane. This isn't how families work." "Funny," I said, "because nothing about the last 28 years has felt like family to me." My dad stepped closer to the bed, face flushed. "We raised you better than this, to respect your elders, to give without keeping score. You raised me to say yes until there was nothing left of me." His voice sharpened. "You ungrateful little—" Diana appeared in the doorway behind them. She didn't say a word, just stood there, arms crossed, watching. My mother took that as a cue to try the tears. "You don't understand," she said, voice cracking perfectly on cue. "We were desperate. Kyle's been struggling. The trip. We didn't think you'd mind. You've always been so strong." I held her gaze. "You didn't wait for me to wake up. You left a voicemail. You used my accident as a distraction so you could do what you were already planning." Kyle threw the house key at the foot of my bed. It clattered against the tile. "Here," he snapped. "Guess you don't want this back." I didn't even flinch. "You have no right," my dad growled. "After everything we've done for you." I looked at him, at all of them, and felt nothing. No anger, no bitterness, just quiet. "I'm not angry," I said. That surprised them. They blinked. "I'm done." Those were the only words I needed. They left in a blur of muttered insults and wounded dignity, the thick silence of the hospital hallway swallowing their retreat. Diana stepped into the room, crossed to my bed, and picked up the key from the floor. She looked at me, raised one eyebrow, and tossed it in the trash can without a word. Later that night, Ms. Anita wheeled herself in from across the hall and said, "Heard the witch's coven came through." I smiled for the first time all day. She gave a satisfied nod. "Bet that spine of yours is titanium now." "Titanium and paperwork," I said. "Best kind," she replied. 3 weeks later, I left the hospital with a duffel bag, a limp, and no forwarding address for my family. Diana picked me up herself. Showed up with hot coffee, a sandwich from my favorite food cart, and a playlist titled "Goodbye Vampires." She helped me into the truck like I was made of porcelain, even though I kept insisting I could do it. We didn't go to my old apartment. We went to Ms. Anita's. Her house was a cheerful yellow craftsman on a quiet street in southeast Portland. She called it my little kingdom, and it looked exactly like her, full of books, houseplants, and enough post-it notes to map a military campaign. Her guest room had floral sheets, a bright window, and a sign above the dresser that read, "This space is yours." She charged me $50 a month for symbolic rent, as she called it. "If you live here for free, it feels like charity," she said. "If you pay something, even something small, it's a choice. Yours?" I chose yes. Diana came by every other day. She drove me to therapy, picked up groceries I couldn't carry, and left funny drawings on the fridge. One day she brought a tiny cactus and said, "If you can keep this thing alive for a month, you're officially healed." Walt even stopped by once, bringing a bag of dollar store candy and a mug that said "Janitor of my own destiny." It felt strange to be surrounded by people who wanted nothing from me, who didn't ask for a cent, who didn't expect gratitude or guilt or access to my accounts. One evening, Diana and I sat on the porch while the sun dipped below the trees. My ribs still ached when I moved too quickly, My legs would never be quite the same. But I could stand. I could breathe. I could sit in a chair that didn't tilt or beep. Diana passed me a cup of tea and asked, "Do you regret it?" The question surprised me. I looked out at the quiet street. Birds chirped somewhere in the distance. Ms. Anita was inside, humming off-key to a 1950s jazz record. "No," I said finally. If it hadn't happened, I'd still be trapped in a house I wasn't allowed to call mine. Still paying for everything, apologizing for taking up space. Diana lifted her tea. "Then welcome to your real home." We sat there for a long time, not speaking. No beeping machines, no texts, no shame. Just quiet, just peace. And for the first time since the crash, maybe for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was building something real, not for them, for me.